Hey everyone, I'm back in the studio tonight and I wanted to do a quick walkthrough on a topic that's been coming up a lot recently for some reason, the parable of the talents as it's normally called. And this is actually one of the first stories when I really started doing in-depth Bible studies that I got into, and it really changed my perspective on how I had seen this parable growing up. It changed my perspective on the character of God. It changed my perspective on his expectations of me. And it was actually a really cool, kind of an eye-opening event. So I wanted to share this walkthrough with you guys. It shouldn't take too long, but we're going to jump into Matthew 25 here. So the whole parable starts out, and I know some of you know this parable, but try to kind of come at it with a fresh lens. Take away what you think is supposed to be the point of this story. Take away what you think you're supposed to learn and just look at the story in the Bible for what Jesus is saying here. So he starts it off, the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. Now, first off, it says the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling. It does not say the kingdom of heaven is like a talent. And it says he delivers his goods to them. That word in the Greek. Now, what I want to do in this walkthrough, I want to show you actually some of the Greek so that you guys can go ahead and do this anytime you want. So we're going to see what this word delivered means in the Greek. Just going to scroll down there to our helpful tools. Look at that. Here's the word in the Greek. Now, if some of you are new to this website or to more in-depth studies in general, just ignore everything on the page except for the English words that you can understand. It's going to be real simple tonight. This is the word that we translate as delivered or gives over his possessions. And you can see it means to give into the hands of another, to deliver verbally, to permit, to allow. Now, one of the places that this is used is when Jesus says, all things have been delivered to me by my Father. And if you scroll to the bottom here on this website, it gives you every reference in the Bible where that specific word is used. And you can see it in so many different contexts. The point of that being, this word does not mean a loan, which we're going to get to a little bit more later. I don't want to spoil the ending, but it says he gives over his possessions to them. Just like when Jesus says the Father has given these things into my hand. The word's also used when it talks about people being sent to jail or delivered to jail. So it's not really talking about some temporary placement. It's like you are going here and it's an exchange of ownership, an exchange of possession and authority that's going on here. So he gives over his possessions to his servants, delivers his goods to him. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. Now, some of you know this and some of you may not, but a talent in the Greek word here, it's not a skill or an ability. It's not something you're good at. It's not something that you've practiced and developed in your own life as a skill or an ability. It's a weight of measurement used to measure money, specifically gold at that time. Now, the talent was used to measure different kinds of precious metals, but the idea behind it is if you have so many gold coins, let's say, that you don't want to spend time to count them out one by one, you just weigh them. And a talent was a weight of measurement. Now, in my study, I found estimates as low as a talent being 75 pounds and as high as about 200 pounds for a talent. And there were different kinds of talents, but really most people agree it was between 75 and 200 pounds for one talent. Now, to understand that, we need to ask ourselves how much money we're given to the servants. Because a talent is money and he's giving over his possession. So he's giving his servants money. So I'm kind of curious how much it was. I went and did the math today, and today is May 2nd, 2022. And actually, let me just pull it up here because I wrote it down. Gold was trading at 1,865 per ounce today. 16 ounces in a pound. So on the low end, 75 pounds of gold today is worth just over $2.2 million for one talent. That's an absurd amount of money that the master gives to his servants. And remember, that's just one talent, not to mention the 5 talent guy that he gave. Now, when it says he gave to each according to his own ability, that's another word in the Greek that we need to look at. And a lot of times when we see this, we see talent and we see ability, then we start to think, okay, this is kind of like a hypothetical parable about a master or God giving you skills and gifts that you use for the kingdom. And that's a decent principle to live by because, we are here because of God. He gave us what we are. But is that what the words are talking about in this parable? This is the Greek word when it says to each according to their ability, power, might, strength, the ability. Now, think of it this way. And I know for some of you deeper studiers, you can scroll down here and see the lexicon definitions. Sometimes it's just a little bit easier to go with the outline here. What it's saying here in this parable, the master gives over his possessions according to the physical ability of the servants. When that word is used, it's always, well, not always, but it's really talking about Jesus having the physical ability to heal someone. There's a spiritual component to it, absolutely, but a physical ability to do something. So what this parable is saying is this master gives to his servants physically whatever they are able to carry. The way I picture it is this. So the master calls this meeting. He brings the first servant in. Hey, buddy, I'm giving you guys all my possessions, all my goods. Here's this pile of gold that I have. How much can you physically carry away from this meeting? One servant can carry 1 talent. One servant can carry 5. One servant can carry 2. And they leave that meeting according to whatever they are able to physically carry with them. Now, it also doesn't say that this meeting was a group event. Now, sometimes we pull that from this parable and we kind of justify, or we kind of try to see that 1 talent servant's perspective because everyone else was given more than him. And that's not really said in the parable. In fact, you go through it and look, nowhere does it say this was a group event. It says he calls the servants together. Now, it could have been a group event, but it's equally as likely this was a one-on-one meeting, which means that each servant would have no idea what the others were given. All they would understand, and all that is in the context of this parable, is one servant meeting the master giving them as much gold as they can carry, and now what do they go and do with that? How do they now live because of that? So, let's read on here. The one who received 5 talents went and traded with them, made another 5 talents. Now, this word in the Greek, it means to do business, to go and operate as. So this first servant who received 5 talents, which is an absurd amount of money, goes out and does business with that money. So he invests it. He invests in a gym. He invests in a barber shop. He buys an apple orchard or whatever it is. And those things start producing profit for him. Likewise, the one who received 2 gained 2 more by trading, by doing business with them. Now, this also isn't a parable about becoming a businessman. Now, you can extract that from it, sure, but what it's really saying is that those 2 servants, they accepted and received that gift from the master, and they now operated in a new identity because of that gift. Now, parables are supposed to point to spiritual things, then this is where you start to see that spiritual connection. The first 2 servants receive a ridiculous, incredible gift from the master. They accept that gift, and it changes their identity to where they are no longer servants and slaves in the community. They are now owners. They are now influential business people in the community with wealth, with the ability to do things, to influence, to create more wealth. And it goes on here. But the one who'd received 1 talent went away, dug in the ground, and hid his Lord's money. So we have 2 of the servants that go out and live the gift that they've been given. But one of them digs a hole. Now, this has always been so weird to me that he digs this hole and hides the money in that. Now, you know what that's like? That's like burying a dead body. And honestly, at the end of the parable, you see the master call him on this, but it's really painting this picture. This one servant, he didn't just reject the gift. He went and buried it in the ground as if it were dead to him. That's how much he despised the master and how much he despised the gift. Now remember, this servant, this slave, who you don't own things when you're a slave in this context. You don't get to own property. You're not an influencer in the community. He was just given $2.2 million, which would radically change his life and position in the community. But because he despised the master so much, he digs a hole in the ground, buries it in the ground. So now what happens? After a long time, the Lord of these servants came and settled accounts with them. Now, if you look at these words in the Greek as well, it does not mean he came to collect money from them. In fact, the only other time you see this phrase in the Bible is in another parable in Matthew 18, where it's another parable about a Lord and their servants. One of the servants owes him money, and the Lord comes to settle accounts. Now, and we're going to see this proven out in the end of this parable, but this phrase does not mean he comes to get money back. The literal definition of it is he just comes to take up together with. So he comes to have conversations with these people and see where things are at. He's been gone for a while. I gave you guys this incredible gift when I left. Now I want to come back. I want to see how you're doing. I want to see what's going on. So he comes to settle accounts, to see what's going on, to see where things are at in their lives. And the one who received 5 talents came and brought 5 more, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. You gave me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents beside them. Lord's really happy. We get this famous line, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I'll make you ruler over many things. And then this is a key phrase, enter into the joy of your Lord. Now, when you look at that phrase in the Greek as well, it talks about entering into the same kind of life that the master enjoys. So before, I'd given you a gift and it changed your identity. Now that you have accepted that gift and you have lived from that identity, now at the end of times, I'm coming back and you are entering into the full joy of my kingdom as that lordship exists. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Same one who'd received 2 said the same thing. I've gained 2 more talents, and he said the same thing. Well done. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And one thing I always find interesting when we read stories in the Bible especially, and when there's a clear bad guy, we always take what they say as if it's true. Like I've heard people read this parable and be like, well, the Lord was hard, he was harsh. Why are we assuming he's got the right perspective? Like he's called the evil, wicked servant. He's not the good guy. But his perspective is this: I know you to be a hard man, reaping where you do not sow and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid. And I kind of think he throws this in as like this pitiful little attempt for the Lord to feel bad about him or something. I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. This line right here is one of the most brazen, disrespectful statements in the entire New Testament when you understand the context, or at least how it appears to me when I read it in the original. It's just, you've been given this incredible gift and you buried it in the ground, and it's almost like he's now throwing it back in the master's face. Like, look, there you have what is yours. And the Lord said to him, you wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Now this is kind of saying your perspective was this of me, not I am a harsh man who's evil and mean and reap where I don't sow, but you knew me as this. He kind of calls him out. If that were so, you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming, I would have received back mine own with interest. Now this next line in verse 28, this is so cool because this is the proof that this gift was not alone. Therefore, take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. The gift the master gave the servants was not a loan because he never asks for the money back. In fact, he gives more to one of the servants at the end. This was not a loan. This was not something the master gave expecting a return on when he came back from his journey. This was a free gift extended to all the servants with the purpose of changing their identity so that they could operate as the master did in the world, in the community. Ultimately with the goal of them entering into the fullness of his joy when he returns. Now I hope we're seeing the not so subtle implications of what this parable means, because Jesus is talking about how the kingdom of heaven operates. There's a Lord, there's God the Father. And he has extended to all of us this incredible free gift of salvation and eternal life through Christ. That's an incredible gift. There is nothing we could do to earn that gift. We had this broken identity as slaves and servants. We were extended this free gift, and when we accept it, our identity is changed to where we are no longer slaves, but now sons of God. That's the point of this parable. And when I realized this, when I studied this for the first time, it was such a burden lifted, because I used to read this as, well, I better work whatever skills and gifts God gave me. And when he comes back, if I've doubled it, then I'll get to heaven. If I haven't, then he'll be disappointed with me, then he'll cast me out, then something bad's going to happen. And that is not what this parable is communicating. There is so much freedom and grace in this parable. So I hope you guys got something out of this. We're going to do some more of these walkthroughs, because there's a lot of topics that are coming up lately where people are asking, okay, what does this actually mean? I don't want someone's opinion on this topic or this biblical story anymore. I want to know the truth of it. And this is stuff that you guys can all go and study for yourselves. The website I'm using here is blueletterbible.org. It's a free website. And it's very simple to use once you kind of get your feet wet in there and just start clicking around. You're not going to break anything. So just go to the website, start clicking around. But just to recap it was not alone. It's not about you having to double your skills in order to impress God when it comes back. This parable is about a loving Father who has given us an incredible gift through Jesus Christ. And if we accept it and let that change our identity, then we enter into his joy. So I appreciate you guys. Until next time, keep the faith and stay in the fight.